Originally in Spanish, 2023.
Okay, let's go step by step. The word pharaoh is not Egyptian. There were no pharaohs in Egypt, but kings. That civilization had gods? We said there were no pharaohs. But did they have gods that ruled them? I would say only kings.
Pharaohs, no. That is something as a concept that came out of the Bible only. That is the only reference to the word pharaoh associated with Egypt. And the Bible is one of the worst places to look for unmanipulated historical information. Kings ruled Egypt, yes. First in a polytheistic way. Then, after Akhenaten and Nefertiti, in a monotheistic way, solar worship, briefly. And then they returned to polytheism until the fall of Egypt and the end of Cleopatra's time, and before Rome.
But there are inscriptions that speak of gods who ruled Egypt in the past.
Yes, this is another matter that is easy to explain. Many of the kings equated themselves with the gods. That is to say, that they imposed the idea that they themselves are gods. In Egypt, the clearest example of this are Akhenaten, who was the sun according to himself, Meritaten and Cleopatra Arsinoe, with all three claiming to be Ishtar, Isis. This idea was later adopted in Rome by Vespasius and his psychopathic son Titus, who even imposed the writing of the New Testament in his image and likeness. Titus was Jesus Christ.
Understood, yes. Did that artificial lake exist in Karnak? Was it placed later, or does it fulfill some function related to the energetic subject of the portals?
Yes, water, aquiferous mantles in general, increase the efficiency of the ground polarity in that kind of zero-point or free technology, the one produced by pyramidal reactors. They increase the conductivity of the soil by increasing the electrical depolarization of the atmosphere.
And another question. A portal creates a very powerful energetic node. Do you think that after so many years, there is any energy left in the atmosphere?
I don't know if I understand what you mean. The atmosphere always has an energetic charge. The only thing is that on Earth, the controllers do not allow the use of zero-point type atmospheric depolarization technology like the one used in the pyramids.
I was referring to whether with some device you can measure the remaining energy, if any, where the portal of the 7 doors was located. In the case that it was a portal, there is nothing to measure energetically where the portal was anymore?
I understand. In general, there is no energy left there, because whatever produced it is no longer active or has been removed. However, the place itself is on energy nodes, ley lines and the like. In addition, the very material from which these old buildings are constructed has piezoelectric properties, and they retain frequencies in their molecular matrix. When the portals were operational, those places were under an enormous amount of energy that remains in the material of the place itself, because it changes all its molecular structure. That is to say, the place remembers that that kind of energy was there because it was very powerful. Yes, it can be detectable by sensitive devices.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You know this one?
Yes, Bastet.
And Sekhmet, by another name. Who was it? It has the solar disk and the serpent. Was it an Irma that brought the knowledge?
That is Urma. It was interpreted as coming out of the largest portal of the solar system, the sun. Yes, that's why the symbolism. There was a lot of Urma presence in Egypt. But I must also say that the animal-headed beings found there does not necessarily mean that they were physically like that. In the case of the Urma, yes. What happens is that in Egypt, they were given the head of the animal that was most associated with the capacity or qualities of the person to be represented. That is to say, it did not have the head of a jackal, but had qualities comparable to those of a jackal.
Okay. Do you know anything about Cerro Uritorco? Many people from Argentina ask me that. Is there something about that mountain? I think you said once that it has a dome underneath.
It is on a large base and dome that is connected by maglev train to all other relevant domes in the world. There is high ship traffic because of the secret openings of the site, especially drones.
Federation or reptile?
Cabal in control of the Earth.
Nothing positive, no light beings?
There are light beings everywhere. They try to equilibrate the forces. Light beings do not need bases, but they do have an affinity to be seen in one place or another more than in other places. I can't say what else is there. I can't know what else is there.
They say that this hill has a distinct energetic aura.
Yes, it may even be because of the very energy composition of its rocks, probably magnetic, and because it is on ley lines.
Thank you. Someone asks, and what was the purpose of the giant sarcophagi of the Serapeum of Saqqara, Egypt?
They are not sarcophagi. They are empty containers for electrical capacitors. They are associated with the free energy and electricity distribution systems. They are part of the electrical network that covered the area.
It seems that they did not know how to remove them from there without destroying them, and opted to leave them there.
Better to leave them.
But now they are useless, aren't they?
Yes, they are just empty containers. That someone once put a mummified bull in there proves nothing. Just that they put a bull in there as an offering to those who came from Taurus, and they put them in those capacitor containers.
Thank you. Another question. What is the true meaning of scarabs in Egyptian culture?
They are beings with high protective energy.
But that is symbolism? Do those live beetles really bring protective energy?
No more than any other insect. And yes, everything is symbolism there. In itself, the beetle also symbolizes the solar energy, the one that heals, protects from the evil spirits of the night. It is the egregor that is generated around the symbol, so it can be real, but is an egregor, not because of the scarab itself.
And the fact that there are many of them, blue, means something? Or is it just the mineral that it was made of?
That's right, because they were usually made of aquamarine, lapis, or jade. I'm missing one more, turquoise. They are all very high vibrational stones. Another day. As you have seen in some channels that know about this, they are or were forming a fictitious past. Only the big constructions, like the pyramids and the Sphinx, are in the right place. Although everything is already altered, including those.
Just to guide the public's perception, or is there an ulterior motive?
Marketing, tourism, as secondary objectives.
And what is under the Sphinx is already vandalized, isn't it? By the elites?
Yes, but there are several levels underground. The first one is just below. It's a whole big city, all hidden from the public. I understand there are several small ships still down there. I don't know if they are still there or if they were taken away.
Well, continuing from the previous conversation, we were saying that there was a previous culture that built all that in Egypt.
Well, further back, it was the Federation itself with a starport and city. Then there settled several nomadic tribesmen who, over time, became the ancient Egyptians, as they are known, but using infrastructure that was already there, just like in Mesoamerica. And that influence can be seen all over the planet, with many elements that match between cultures with similar things. For example, the Tula giants in Hidalgo, Mexico, carry bags and clocks like the Sumerians, because they represent the same non-human stellar people.
We are talking before Tiamat, right?
It is difficult to define because they also visited countless times after Tiamat. So I tend to believe that those represent post-Tiamat visitors. It has to be post because if the bag saw knowledge, it had to be at the time when that knowledge was lacking, and that was after Tiamat. Yes, they are those who came to help with the planetary reconstruction post-Tiamat. And can you tell very quickly what these bags represent, please? It is sowing knowledge, isn't it? Yes, it is meant as a symbol of sowing knowledge. Yes, because they are little bags, like the ones that were used to fill with seeds and taking them from there as you walk in a field with prepared soil, sowing by hand as before. And how do we know that the oldest Egypt was true? Only by the monuments they left? Pyramids, Sphinx, and extraterrestrial city are real. However, they do not fit into an official or federation time frame, which can only place them much further back in time. Although, there again there are problems, because time is plastic and cannot be calculated with a constant duration once the perceiving generation has passed away. In other words, the actual duration of the 6th century BC is not the same as that of the 8th century BC.
And what was the involvement of the Taygetans?
The implication is high. Many Taygetans were Anunnaki, or still are, but I am referring to Anunnaki from before. The Svarus, likewise, with their involvement with genetics. Okay, I have some questions from people. Was there or is there an entrance to the inner Earth? Did that base communicate with the inner Earth? Yes, that's right. There are alternate entrances all over the globe, not just the big ones at the poles. Even places like the island of Malta still has entrances to the hollow Earth there. The base or city below Giza connects to more corridors and caverns that, if followed, lead to the inner Earth. Yes. Other entrances are under Mount Busegi, under Alt-Ur in Iraq, under the Vatican, among other places. Alt-Ur not as a PC command, just saying. Do intraterrestrial races still use them? Do they come out there? I can't know about all those entrances, or only two for sure. The entrances under the Vatican and Malta are used. The one in Malta is dangerous, and that's where a lot of people disappear. Where do they go? Underground? Do they talk to the intraterrestrials? The Vatican's people talk to the intraterrestrials of the lizard races.
The same as under the Nazca tracks.
It is true there too. Malta is also lizard entry and has been known since the time of the Crusades. And today it is still used for rituals and sacrifices by more intraterrestrial lizards. Wow, okay.
Okay, so, in the much talked about pyramid construction, when we refer to cranes to place the stones, we are not referring to this type of crane, are we? It would be something more futuristic, no ropes and wood, right?
They were used there, yes, but not for the pyramids, or in a limited way, later, for some repairs. Even so, cranes were used in the construction of the pyramids because it is not a single method of construction. As everywhere, multiple methods are used depending on the place and what is needed.
But they would not have that design? They would be made of other, lighter and more resistant materials, wouldn't they?
Wood was used rather by the inhabitants of Egypt, but not for the construction of pyramids, not the big ones. Maybe temples and so on, but as something subsequent. Okay, thank you. I have this question from someone. What is the most important thing we can learn now from ancient Egypt? What is relevant there for what we are facing now as beings in transition? What I consider most important is for you to realize that civilizations arise, develop, and then go down again to be replaced by others. Ancient Egypt, as you understand it, is a very limited version of what really happened and what it was like after Tiamat. And they definitely did not build the Great Pyramids or the Sphinx or major temples of the same era. They just took advantage of what was already there and used it to form their civilization with their own ideas around that infrastructure already there.
Is it known which culture took advantage of what was there? Was it the Celts? Because they knew that there was a spaceport? Or were there no cultures as such after the flood?
The link with the Celts goes way back, from the formation of so-called pre-dynastic Egypt. the part that emerged just after Tiamat, as Celtic immigrants with power moved there, trying to escape persecution and the problems of the Highland area of Ireland and Scotland. Highlands, because they were not flooded by the post-Tiamat flood. The Celts are a primordial people, the basis or cradle of modern civilization as it is known today, not the Chinese or Sumerians. Modern civilization began in Ireland. But I can go further back. It started in Ireland because that is where the survivors of Atlantis managed to settle after the Great Flood. If we look at the context of the Great Flood being a reset event. The present version of the world began in Ireland and Scotland. And the context or time frame of 12,500 years, we are already doubting it very much here, since the poor but existing evidence we have here, based on records and navigational systems of ships, indicates to us that clearly it all happened much more recently. And the data are poor because it is very difficult to contrast frequency maps with historical events based on artificial dates. They do not match. You said I can go further back. Why is that further back? I understood that the flood of Atlantis and the flood of Tiamat were the same thing. Yes and no. It depends on how you look at it. It's just that Atlantis was there before the flood, as a Federation starport. Then it was invaded by regressive factions of the same Federation that cooperated with Orion and company. Conspiracy of ours, but with grounds thanks to the Urma. And then arrived the forces of love and light of the Galactic Federation, and they beat each other until they destroyed an entire planet and devastated many others in this solar system. And in that destruction, there was the flood when the waters of Tiamat came, and with the subsequent destruction of Atlantis as a city, base, and as a planetary civilization with other cities and bases around the globe. And that later resulted in the survivors having to migrate to the highlands that were still above water level, including Ireland and Scotland, hence the name Highlands, as by modern standards they are not high at all. And subsequently from there they moved to Egypt, among other places.
And the 12,500 year time frame has to be much less time, perhaps?
Between 2 or 3 to 5 or 6,000 years ago. What alarms us is that this is the official age of the Earth according to the Bible and the creation story. Why are you alarmed by this? That someone who wrote the Bible was the same Federation that knew this, perhaps? That the Bible was right there. It is known to have been written recently, in terrestrial terms with a terrestrial time frame no later than the 13th century, but with stories and components from various parts of the world, all much older.
And why would they add so many years to the history?
They clearly spread out the events that happened in different places and simultaneously to make it all kind of sequential and to fit their historical lies, as well as the false events and characters. That's a lot of work, fitting all that together. It had to be done by someone who was pretty organized.
They have all the time in the world to put all of this stuff together.
Yes, and they are in another duration time frame. We are the ones who are putting the puzzle together, but they had it all well structured, and as they moved forward with patience. For example, George Washington, Swaruu talked to him before he crossed the Potomac River, so he existed, right? Not necessarily, because she talked to someone. But was it him? I have no way of knowing if he told her a name. And the description doesn't match Washington, since the one she spoke to was much younger. Maybe Washington was younger than stated, perhaps. But the frequency dates on the Suzy flight computers do not match the 1775 date. It all raises a lot of doubts. I understand. Wow. Now, not to deviate from the subject of Egypt, I have this question. Unfinished North Pyramid, but also known as the Gran Pozo, do you know anything about it? No, I would have to research that to be able to answer.
And Tina, what do we know about the other Sphinx? What happened to it?
Apparently, it was destroyed over time and ended up being used as a later construction material. There is no clear data of what happened to it. It was there at the time of Nefertiti when the whole Meritaten thing happened, but it was no longer there at the time of Cleopatra and Arsinoe. Okay, I have this question. The passageways inside the pyramids leading to the chambers are quite steep, no steps, and the inside of the pyramids are completely dark. How would people move through them? Perhaps Athena could describe what it would be like to enter the pyramids when they were in use. But those corridors were narrow, although the main entrances, now walled up or reduced, were larger. A pyramid is not a place of much traffic, and the empty places get in the way or interfere with the proper functioning of everything. That is, the corridors interfere with the energetic dynamics, so they are kept as small as possible. Although there could be other explanations, that is what I understand to be the main one. So people didn't move around there much, you mean? They didn't have to go there. Only the maintenance people. It's just maintenance corridors, no rituals. Those are ideas added later. They are just portals and zero-point reactors of the atmospheric depolarization type, which are less efficient than the ones that are totally zero-point, like the ones with floating quartz cores, such as the ones on the spacecraft. That is, a pyramid reactor only works inside a planet and is using only the electrical charge differential between the sky and the Earth. It is not full or real zero point.
Wow, okay. I have this question. Who were those elongated skulls of Akhenaten and Nefertiti? Why don't the Celts have those skulls?
They are Capensis, Akhenaten. If you look at him, he didn't have a Taygetan shape, neither in the body. That is why it is said that he was deformed. Nefertiti, on the other hand, hid her not elongated head behind her hat and was the puppeteer of Akhenaten. Neither was she of the color she was painted.
What happened when the Celts met with them?
The Capensis arrived much later. They never directly confronted the Celts, although both had red hair. They were not the same species. The Celts were in Egypt much earlier. Or they only reigned there later as descendants of the Celts. So, at most, their interaction with Capensis was very limited. But they are the same Capensis that were in Egypt with Akhenaten that were also in the Peru area. This is where our conversation with Athena ended at the time. Thank you, Athena, for your willingness to answer all these questions.